Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of NYACAST, where we are yapping with different creators. And today we are joined by dog Vivi, who is a good friend of mine and also a real-life
Yeah.
scientist. And why don't you introduce
Yes.
yourself?
Hello, lab rats. My name is Dog Vivi. I'm your favorite mad scientist VTuber and bratty cyborg cat. I like streaming strategy games, horror games, and RPGs. Really any game that gives me an excuse to ramble at length about science on stream because I'm also a scientist in real life. Specifically, I'm in the field of bioinformatics, which is the study of biomolecular data through the lens of computational analysis. Essentially, this amounts to my expertise is in taking data relating to DNA and proteins and other molecules that make up biological systems and computationally analyzing them with computers. It's kind of hard to break down in a way that doesn't sound kind of stupid.
I'm just checking is Vivi's volume okay? If there's like some complaint or anything, just let me know in chat. I actually wanted to do like an overlay where you can also see chat messages, but I've been like a little bit too lazy. Volume could be a tiny
Yeah.
bit louder. I will do that. I think Vivi tends to fluctuate sometimes. That's okay. That's okay.
I move around too much for my mic.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for
Sounds like some
joining.
Thought Emporium shit. Yes, the guy who does Thought Emporium is, to my knowledge, also a bioinformaticist.
Is it still too quiet, or do I need to raise the volume a little bit more? Perfect now. Okay. I think Vivi just needs to be like a little bit consistent that everything is fine with the volume, I guess. But yeah, thanks for joining me. Thanks for making the time. And do you want to hop right
Also, thank you for the
into
logo.
the topics that you wanted to talk about, or do you want to?
I do want to say, since people said my model is really cool, I do want to show off one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Did the button not work? The button did not work. Hold on. I guess I didn't press it hard enough. There we go.
Big tongue.
Back to normal.
It's kind of interesting that like your normal state is like, you know, being a cyborg and having like open wounds and like a lot of like cables everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Normal.
You're so normal.
I'm very normal. I think compared to you, I think my model looks incredibly normal.
Yeah.
Basic even.
What do I go to next? I said, yeah, your chat is all talking about how cool my model is.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Model
making
is
me
pretty
feel
cool.
warm and fuzzy inside.
Are you getting flustered?
A little.
Damn. Wait, chat, you should talk about how
I mean, if you think I'm really cool, you should probably just follow me on Twitch.
for real. Chat, you should talk about how nice Vivi's voice is. You should do that next.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. But yeah, we haven't collabed in a while actually.
We haven't. I've been like so busy recently.
Thank you, chat.
Also, I will note that I currently have a cold. It's not a bad cold. Otherwise, I would have asked if we could delay this. But like, I do have a cold.
Yeah. I hope you feel better soon. In Germany, our doctors would be like, oh yeah, there's just something in the air right now. There's just something going around. That's typically how it goes here. When she starts talking about science, then I'm going to have full gay panic. Yeah, it's going.
The specific thing I really wanted to talk about on this podcast, and what I prepared the PowerPoint slideshow for, was the actual mechanisms by which sex differentiation works in humans, and why the notion of biological sex, quote unquote, and particularly the idea that it amounts to just chromosomes, doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you understand how it actually works. And why we should also, just in an objective sense, not like a political sense, but why you should consider trans people who have been on HRT for a while biologically their gender, not just, you know, mentally.
No, but gametes. It's kind of interesting because like I have spoken about this like numerous times, but I haven't gone like in depth into like the science behind it. It's just like how the term like a biological female male actually doesn't really make any sense. I think you even talked about on Blue Sky a while ago how a lot of times when you have like a medication, if you like it doesn't, or like it's not about like you being born male or you being born female that like changes how the medication
One example
affects you.
I like to cite is how migraines are about equally common for males and females as children. But men usually grow out of it as adults. And the thing and usually don't have migraines anymore as adults. It's kind of uncommon for adult men to have migraines. If you are, say, a trans woman and you had migraines as a child and you go on HRT, you will start having migraines again.
Because it's like estrogen
Conversely,
related.
if you're a trans man and you have migraines and you're on AT for a while, you're likely to stop having migraines.
Like a lot of things are impacted by the hormones that you have in your body and not necessarily by you being born a certain way. I'm kind of thinking about like how can I share the slideshow of this, because if I start the slideshow it's going to like go into like full screen and I don't want this to be like my full screen thingy. Recenter view.
The actual mechanism behind this is interesting because the mechanism behind migraines is the blood vessels that pass like through gaps in the skull for things like your eyes and ears and stuff, dilating and physically pressing down on the nerve bundles that also pass through those openings. And estrogen encourages vasodilation, while testosterone encourages vasoconstriction. Which is also, of course, the reason why the rates are different in cis men and cis women.
Okay, I think I have this in my screen set up. So if you want to do like the slideshow, just let me know if I like when I should move forward. I think we can yap about certain things. But I also don't really want to interrupt your
migraines
flow.
by microdosing testosterone. There are like more specific vasoconstrictive medications used for migraines, actually.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering how you want to do this. If I just want
I'll tell you in the next slide.
okay. Do you want to like talk about certain things, or do you just want to have like your little presentation? We can talk about it afterwards.
We can talk about during it. Don't be afraid to ask
Okay.
questions.
Okay. I will
So, the first slide is just the title, which is Mechanisms
mhm.
of Human Sex Differentiation, and the subtitle, Sex isn't really genetic, actually, it's epigenetic.
And I'm guessing you're going to
Next
explain
slide.
that
Yes, I
soon.
will. So, you probably learned in school or through just cultural osmosis this idea that XX means female, XY means male. Everyone starts as female, and men have nipples despite them being quote unquote useless. That's not actually accurate, as I'm going to get to. And the Y chromosome encodes all the male traits, while the X chromosome encodes both male and female ones, which is again not true. Next slide.
All of them are wrong.
Yeah, all these are wrong.
Hmm.
This is a bit on the history of our understanding of chromosomes. Theodore Boveri first discovered chromosomes were vectors of heredity. Nettie Maria Stevens discovered sex chromosomes to determine sex in mammals. Techniques of karyotyping developed in the following decades, and so on. Next slide.
Do you happen to know when words like male and female were actually being used? Because I think they were being used before this was like even discovered when it comes to like
They're pretty
chromosomes and so
old,
on.
yeah. Yeah,
And
they're pretty old, I believe.
yeah, and I think it's like what I find interesting is that like people are like pushing the idea that like, oh no, we know that like XX means female and thus that means woman, but like we knew the word
Oh yeah, all the
female.
turf bullshit about how we can instinctively sense sex knows
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, exactly. It's just yeah, I'm not
They
entirely
often
sure.
like say state pheromones or some shit either.
Oh yeah,
Also,
fertility.
despite the fact that the human vomeronasal organ, which is what mammals use to sense pheromones, is
Hmm.
actually vestigial, non-functional, and doesn't even have an opening into the nasal cavity.
Yeah. What I find interesting.
Humans might still make pheromones, but we can't sense them.
Exactly. What I find interesting, I had like one tweet that triggered a lot of like conservatives and like right wingers and so on when it was like the majority of people are not attracted to like reproductive organs or are not like attracted to people just because of their reproductive organs and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are like pushing the idea like, oh, that is invalidating gay people because gay relationships are between a penis haver and a penis haver, or a vagina haver and a vagina haver.
I think you could ask most gay people about that, and they'd say no.
Yeah, I think that like attraction and so on, and like how we perceive certain people is just it is way more complex than just like XX, XY, and so on, and like just fertility brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can't even sense pheromones, correct? We can't sense pheromones. We
Don't
no longer
you
have the organ to do so.
don't you know there's the pheromone infused tactical soap? Military grade
I know it's so
tactical.
funny all this conversation about pheromones and knowing that like humans cannot sense pheromones. We don't have
Yeah.
the anatomy required.
Sometimes people just smell nice, right? Like if you shower and you
Yeah.
have like a nice shampoo and soap or something, like people just smell nice, and it's nice when you have like somebody who smells nice. No, it's the pheromones.
Can we go to the next slide?
Yes.
So, at first, scientists thought the Y chromosome encoded everything there is about being quote unquote male. That is, all male traits and differences from femaleness. When we discovered genes in the structure of the genome, we assumed that the Y chromosome was full of male genes. You might have still been taught like exactly this in school, but it's not true, as we'll get into with the next slide.
Yeah.
So, one problem with these assumptions is demonstrated with when XYY syndrome was discovered, which is some men have 2 Y chromosomes. When it was first discovered, people assumed it would make you a super male with uncontrolled muscle growth and heightened aggressiveness and competitiveness and stuff. And people like blamed it for urban crime and serial killers, saying they probably have multiple Y chromosomes and that's why they're like that.
Oh my god.
And as we go, and next slide.
Mm-hmm.
The truth, it has no substantial symptoms whatsoever. There are no real significant differences whatsoever between someone with XYY and someone with XY chromosomes. At all. There's also other contradictions. We have women who are born with XY chromosomes, Swyer syndrome, androgen insensitivity syndrome, and XX males like De La Chapelle syndrome. Some people with these karyotypes are even fertile. They can have kids.
Mm-hmm.
What
I find interesting is that, you know, you always have Turs be like, oh yeah, but like exceptions don't break the rules or like something, right? It's just...
And what I always like to say is that science doesn't have exceptions. It has counterexamples.
Yeah. And, another like factor,
you don't get to say that doesn't count in science. If your theory doesn't account for it, your theory is wrong.
Exactly. I think that a lot of people, a lot of like these believers in biological reality, it's just like they don't understand how science works or like scientific methods and so on, and they just think it's just another belief system.
Yeah. Also, like how I said, having 2 Y chromosomes doesn't really have any symptoms at all. Some men have a disorder where their Y chromosome actually disappears.
Yeah.
And they don't have a Y chromosome as an adult. This also has no significant symptoms other than they can't make properly functioning sperm.
Because it doesn't really carry that much information as like people initially assumed.
As we'll get to, yes.
Yeah. And
the next slide. So what genes are on the Y chromosome? First, it's the largest gene desert in the human genome. So you might have heard that most of your DNA is not genes. This is especially the case for the Y chromosome. Only a very, very small portion of the DNA on it is actually coding genes. There's about 19,000 genes you have in total, and there's only about 60 to 80 on the Y chromosome. Which means that's about 0.3% of your total genes.
Next slide.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a diagram of different genes that are found on the Y chromosome, and different regions of it, which I'm going to get into. Here I don't really have slides explaining stuff, so just stay on this for a while.
Okay.
Here at the ends, we have what's called the pseudo-autosomal region. What I mean by pseudo-autosomal is an autosome is a normal chromosome. It's not a sex chromosome. It freely exchanges DNA during meiosis with its partner chromosome. And we call these regions pseudo-autosomal because they freely exchange with the X chromosome. Meaning, by definition, all the genes that are in this part of the Y chromosome are also found on the X chromosome. Which means none of these genes can have anything to do with sex differentiation, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
Here in the short arm euchromatin, we have a number of genes, of which SRY is a very important one, which we'll get to. The rest, however, are similar to the pseudo-autosomal region genes in that they're just homologs of genes on the X chromosome. They don't freely interchange with their counterparts like the pseudo-autosomal region does, but they're still just the same as X chromosome genes. They might be like slightly different, but are broadly the same. And then we have the long arm euchromatin with the AZF gene regions. These are important to the proper function and creation of sperm, which is why Y chromosome deletion causes infertility. But SRY here, that is the gene responsible for sex determination. You might have heard this because transphobes have recently gotten obsessed with this over chromosomes, saying like, oh, actually, it's whether you have an SRY gene or not.
Yeah.
But this also doesn't make sense for reasons I'll get into when I talk about how the SRY gene actually works.
Yeah, how...
Anyways,
like,
next slide.
sometimes the SRY gene can be found on the X chromosome, so they can still have, like...
That's the dick and balls gene,
characteristics or
yes.
something,
You
right?
ask. No, it's not, and I'll explain that.
Okay.
So, next slide.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep, it's just one gene, and it's SRY, and no, it's not encoding all male traits in one gene. And we're going to have to update your understanding of how genes actually work for this. Next slide. So in biology and particularly genetics, we have something called the central dogma, which is the idea that genetic information goes one way. DNA is transcribed into RNA, and RNA is translated into protein. And proteins have no effect on DNA. This is true to a certain extent in that proteins don't like actually alter your DNA, and neither does RNA. But it's not really true that it only flows one way, that DNA dictates everything, as we'll get to. So the next slide.
Do you wanna explain the difference between DNA and RNA?
Oh, yes. So I'd have to get into highly technical things of how DNA is like composed of slightly different stuff than RNA. But the real difference in terms of stuff is that RNA is more reactive than DNA, which makes it worse for long-term storage, but better at actively participating in chemical reactions.
I think there was like RNA, a lot of people were exposed to that during like COVID and so on. Like when they first learned it's like a thing that like evolves a lot, or it's like quickly and so on.
Is COVID an RNA virus? It might be. Let me check this just to save this conversation.
I think it is.
Oh, it is an RNA virus.
Yeah.
Yes, some viruses are actually RNA viruses, and that's an exception to the RNA doesn't modify DNA, because RNA viruses do actually do that. That's another exception to the central dogma.
Okay.
And this is just the part where I say it's wrong.
Okay.
So, next slide.
E.
So RNA polymerase II is the enzyme, which is like a functional protein that binds to DNA and, transcribes it into RNA so that can then be translated into protein. However, it doesn't just bind to genes on its own. It doesn't just randomly bounce around and grab genes. There are a ton of proteins, histones, activators, repressors, that dictate where, when, and how much RNA polymerase actually transcribes a gene by physically bonding to that part of the genome and altering its like actual physical geometry within the nucleus, like folding and unfolding your DNA, sort of like origami. It's very cool. Most of the different proteins your body produces in which your DNA codes for are actually these regulatory proteins. They never leave the nucleus and exist only to control which genes get expressed and when. Often they either work on their own, but usually they respond to signal molecules that tell them to, which they respond to in order to determine whether they should express a gene or not. And the study of these regulatory mechanisms is called epigenetics, which is what I mentioned on the first slide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and the next one. So where sex characteristics actually come from is they come from hormone-mediated differences in gene expression That is, many of these regulator proteins rely specifically on hormones as signal molecules to dictate whether a gene should be transcribed. Why did I mess that up? This includes your sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, etc. And certain genes express themselves more or less depending on relative levels of sex hormones. This is one reason why I would say that trans people, once they've been on HRT for a while, are biologically male, biologically female, because the epigenetic expression of genes will have flipped.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
in fact, the entire reason you have different types of cells in different tissues in your body is because different genes are activated or deactivated via epigenetic mechanisms.
I mean,
in those cells.
There are also like the aspects when it comes to like your like neurobiology and so on when it comes to how.
Oh, I was gonna get to that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. I don't wanna take away.
The next one is talking about how SRY does. SRY produces a regulatory protein called the SRY protein, obviously. Mm-hmm. Genes and their associated protein and the proteins they produce are usually named the same thing. Which upregulates the expression of a gene called SOX9 and downregulates the expression of two genes called WNT4 and RSPO1. These genes are not found on the sex chromosomes. SOX9 is found on chromosome 17. And I don't remember where WNT4 and RSPO1 are. SOX9 is itself a regulatory gene that basically says, hey, immature, undifferentiated gonads that haven't become testes or ovaries yet, you should do the changes that make you into testicles. Whereas WNT4 and RSPO1 say to make ovaries instead. And so what SRY does is it turns up SOX9 and it turns down WNT4 and RSPO1. SRY is only active during a very short window of fetal development, meaning it doesn't even actually do anything once you're born. Mm-hmm. Literally all it does is indicate whether your gonads should become testicles or ovaries, and literally every other sex difference is controlled by testes making more testosterone and ovaries making more estrogen.
Exactly. Next slide.
And this gets to those previous cases, explaining how this explains the previous cases I talked about, chromosomal abnormalities and why it doesn't work. The next slide.
Yeah, that's...
So XYY males. Having two Ys doesn't make a difference because all SRY does is kickstart the process and doesn't do anything after that. Mm-hmm. Y deletion, since they only affect fertility, since the only genes that aren't redundant with the X chromosome are related to sperm development. In XX males, one of their X chromosomes has the SRY gene transposed onto it. They usually can't make functional sperm because they lack the AZF regens and are thus infertile. But it does but because the other genes are found elsewhere in the genome and not the Y chromosome, it does become testicles and it does produce testosterone. Testosterone, not testosterone, what? Anyways, in XY females, there's two different things that usually cause it, which is either their Y chromosome lacks a functional copy of SRY, so the process never gets kickstarted, WNT4 and RSPO1 activate as they do by default and cause differentiation into ovaries, or they simply have non-functional testosterone receptors. So their epigenetics don't respond to testosterone despite having testicles. And everything else differentiates as female.
You said initially some are still fertile?
Yeah, I believe some women with Swyer syndrome have given birth.
Okay. I'm wondering, like, what the difference there is. That is like actually still a
So the thing to
possibility.
get is that women with androgen insensitivity syndrome actually have testicles. They're just in
Oh.
the place their ovaries would be,
Uh-huh.
and the testosterone they make has no effect on them.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So they don't produce like estrogen then?
They don't produce as much estrogen as they would otherwise, but again, they're not responding to testosterone. They're only responding to the estrogen.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
The next slide.
Yeah. After a blueprint is
So what you need
applied,
to
it's just a matter
understand
of
here
hormones. I mean,
is, yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's not really a blueprint. It's just this one gene that triggers differentiation of the gonad specifically. Anyways, all biological differences between male and female are quantitative, not qualitative. They're differences of degree, not essence. It is not binary. All sexed organs are actually present in all people. For example, like I mentioned, the ovaries and testes don't develop like completely separately. They're just two different pathways the gonads can take. But also, the reason men have nipples isn't because they used to be female. It's because everyone has breast tissue. They just never fully mature without exposure to estrogen and progesterone.
That's how like gynecomastia actually happens.
And they're not non-functional either. They're perfectly functional. Men can lactate.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a trans woman, like that can be like a side
Is it possible
effect.
that none of the differentiating genes fire in the fetus? I mean, there's a variety of reasons for that, and that also gets into some other intersex conditions that I didn't list. And changing your hormones changes your biological sex. Yes, this means trans women are biologically female.
Yeah.
And what does this mean for intersex people? Remember, all sex characteristics are determined by hormone levels, not directly encoded on the genes. Having an S or Y gene or not isn't the only thing that determines your hormone levels. Other genes affect them too, many of which are not on the sex chromosomes, and they can be affected by environmental factors too. Would it be possible to turn them into other gonads? You'd have to figure out how to make them regress into, I forget what the term is for a cell that's like partially down a differentiation pathway but hasn't arrived at the final differentiation yet. Is it still called a stem cell?
I can't
When
help
it's
you with
not
that.
pluripotent anymore? I don't know. I don't remember the term. Anyways, you'd have to figure out how to make them undifferentiate, which is not something our bodies naturally have the capacity to do, undifferentiate cells. But it's something we have been working on for other reasons.
Like cancer or something? Wasn't it? Or what reasons
treating
would there be?
aging-related diseases in
Aging?
particular.
Okay. Gotcha.
If you could undifferentiate cells and then reproduce them in a lab, then you could inject them into someone to help them replace their cells. Partially differentiated stem cell, it might be that. Like I think the term here might specifically be we need to turn the gonads back into reproductive stem cells in order to do that. Anyways, atypical hormone levels during critical periods of development may result in the development of atypical sex characteristics, which is the case in most intersex conditions. And in fact, the last slide, one hypothesis and one I happen to subscribe to is that gender dysphoria is a consequence of intersexuality of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Just like everything else, there would be critical periods in brain development where it's being steered onto one pathway or another. And it's possible the hormone levels you're exposed to during that period may be different during other parts of development, which is the same thing that causes all the other intersex characteristics, is different hormones at different periods of development. This would mean that people with gender dysphoria literally have brains of their gender, not metaphorically. like a trans woman with gender dysphoria has a female brain from their birth.
That's why gender euphoria is also like such a big
And
indicator for you being
also,
trans.
something which isn't often acknowledged in discourse for some reason is that there's a very big overlap between being transgender and having other intersex conditions.
Yeah.
Like, there's a very strong correlation between being intersex and being trans and vice versa. People often talk about intersex and trans people as different categories, especially TERFs who want to say, like, oh, trans people are just appropriating intersex people's struggles or whatever. But it's like, they're mostly the same people.
Yeah. It's also like these people, like TERFs and so on, they don't care about intersex people. They're also going to like invalidate intersex conditions and so on.
Which I also included a reminder here because of discourse. You don't need dysphoria to be trans, but dysphoria is real. You don't need an official diagnosis to claim dysphoria or whatever.
I think when it comes to gender dysphoria, there's also like a level of severity that probably indicates that it's not, you know, a binary thing, but it's more like a spectrum. Have you ever talked?
And there's
about,
a bunch
like,
of other evidence that, like, yeah, gender dysphoria is caused by intersex conditions of the brain development.
Yeah.
And essentially you having a brain that expects your body to be different than it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And to be experiencing hormone levels that are different than they are.
Exactly. Like, I think one of the theories is that, like, when your body is being developed, there's like a surge of one hormone, and then when your brain is developed, there's a surge of like the opposite hormone, and that creates like the mismatch.
Well, it's not quite so. There's only two. There's a lot of different periods for different parts.
Yeah. Simplified.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of the thing with like it being an intersex condition. I
Are there
subscribe
actual
to that as
male-female
well.
brains? Santa asks. Yes, however, I would caution against ascribing differences in male and female behavior to differences between male and female brains.
Yeah, brains are complex.
One particular example is female brains have more fat in them than male brains do, which may be an incidental consequence of differences in fat distribution between males and females overall. Yeah. There's also differences in the ratio of gray matter to white matter, and so on and so forth.
The thing
I caution against overinterpreting this because just because a trait exists doesn't mean it fulfills some adaptive purpose.
Yeah, the thing that like a lot of trans
and
people...
this might be like pure, and this might just be random, essentially.
The thing that like a lot of trans people are also like breaking is obviously also like the concept of like, oh, what is like a male brain, what is a female brain? Because there are like some studies with like some...
Also here I linked an article specifically reviewing the evidence that gender dysphoria is a consequence of intersex development of the brain.
Gotcha.
Particularly it says that like things like the overall, like how I mentioned how the composition of male and female brains is slightly different. Trans people's brains match the gender we say we are, not the gender we were assigned at birth.
Do you happen to have like this graphic that like places trans women's brains like next to cis men and cis women? Because like if you use like,
it's not obvious to the eye. If I could find a graphic for it, I would show it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the differences aren't very obvious.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like there's a lot of invalidation that happens when you just like hyperfixate on the, oh, it's like a female brain that you have. Because some people are going to be like, well, actually, trans women's brains are closer to that of like gay men or something, like, right? It's just also like after HRT,
which is not what the evidence says. It says it's the evidence actually shows it's trans women's brains are virtually identical to cis women's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just a lot of people are going to twist a lot of these things. And also, I don't really like the idea that, like, in order to check if somebody is trans, they need to check their brain or something to, like, get
Yeah, that's what I
validity
brought
for
up
it.
with you don't need to have gender dysphoria.
Exactly.
Is
And
that, like, if you say you're trans, you're trans.
exactly.
I don't believe in medical gatekeeping, but,
Yeah.
like, we do, but probably your brain is different if you're trans.
It also invalidates a lot of non-binary people. Like,
Which I would disagree about it potentially invalidating non-binary people, because I suspect, although I haven't seen studies on this, that non-binary people's brains might be in between male and female.
mm-hmm. I think it's just because it's like it's a spectrum, right? And like you're somewhere in the spectrum, and I think there's also like a difference between like gender dysphoria and like sex
that's also
dysphoria.
a thing I emphasized, is that because sexual characteristics are responses to different relative levels of sex hormones.
Exactly.
It's a spectrum. They're all a spectrum.
Like for me, for instance, I had severe bottom dysphoria, right? To the point where I needed surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And that is more like me having this mismatch between like my sex characteristics, right?
Yes.
So there's always like a level, and like some people don't have that, and
there's
it doesn't
some
make
research
them less valid.
Linking that kind of dysphoria to phantom limb syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
If you've heard about how people who have lost a limb, experience this uncomfortable sensation of like seemingly their subconscious knowing the limb should still be there, and reporting sensations for it that are often like deeply uncomfortable. There's some research linking that to the way trans people feel about our bodies.
Yeah, it's just there's something that is just like it doesn't connect
your
with your brain.
Is telling you this is not what my body is supposed to be like.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that, you know, these people are always like, oh, it's common sense, it's basic biology. And then, like, you look deeper into it, and it's just like, it's way more complex than that.
Meanwhile, biologists are having actual discourse about retiring the terms male and female entirely.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Biologists are going woke. They're erasing male and female.
It's funny, I posted about this on Blue Sky, but one thing, despite like journalists being incredibly transphobic and writing transphobic shit all the time, while that may influence other people in society, it's not going to influence scientists, because your average scientist has nothing but contempt for journalists.
Yeah.
Oh my god. The only, like, profession scientists respect less than journalists is politicians.
Valid. Yeah, I think that, like, in science, we are, like, still kind of advancing. It just sucks that, like, the research is being cut and funding is being cut. Because I think that, like, researching trans healthcare and so on would teach also cis people about their own bodies, and also help with a lot of
I forget, Traeger, you say male and female still useful describing a reproductive role. Yes. However, what scientists are actually proposing is replacing them with more technical terms that more directly describe, like, gametes.
Yeah. It's also like
there's a couple different proposals I've seen. Usually it's taking terminology from like botany and describing like trees.
Interesting.
And applying them to animals.
Interesting. How do you feel about like the bimodal graph and so on that like people often like misrepresent for like for sex? Wait, can
I would say yes, sex is a bimodal distribution, however it is multiple independent bimodal distributions. Well, no, they're not independent. They're obviously strongly correlated, but they're not the same. But it's not one But regardless, it's not one bimodal distribution. It's several separate ones.
Yeah, this is like the graph.
Yeah,
and
the error of this graph is it shows it as like one spectrum, one single dimensional spectrum, when it's a many dimensional spectrum.
Yeah. It's also like people are always like looking at like, oh, this is like the peak male, and then everything else is just like, you know, you're like intersex, and then there's like the switch happening where you go to like the peak female or something. I think like people often kind of like try
Whereas
to
intersex really describes anything in between there.
Yeah.
I didn't mention it before, but I actually have some intersex characteristics.
Okay.
Which I'm not going to go into like detail on what my genitals are like. I'm just saying I'm trans and I'm intersex, both.
Interesting.
So
I don't think I'm intersex. I think I do have like I got my karyotype, right? In order to get approved for bottom surgery, I needed to get my karyotyping. I do have XY chromosomes, so but like there could still be like some level of intersex condition, and I still believe that like there's some mismatch between my brain, like the sex of my brain, and my body, and
I want to say a bit more about how when I talk about structural differences between male and female brains, I mentioned to caution not to assume that's responsible for behavior. And the reason why I'm saying that is because laymen often assume that there has to be an adaptive evolutionary explanation for every characteristic that exists. Like if it exists, then definitionally it must serve some purpose. But that's not really true. Genes and traits can just be randomly associated with other genes or traits that are adaptive and become more prevalent in the population through that. Like, for example, our chins. Other mammals don't have a chin structure, like the protruding part of our mandible. The evidence is there is no adaptive purpose to us having chins. It is a consequence of certain genes being proximal to certain other genes responsible for mandible development, that are relevant to like diet changes we underwent as part of our evolution. And so that incidentally caused us to develop this protrusion that became our chin. And so for all we know, all these sex differences between the brain are similar, quote unquote, spandrels. They're useless things that don't really mean anything, that are just because of other stuff.
Yeah. I always find it so interesting how people always assume that like one singular thing is responsible for, you know, all these complexities.
And regardless, if you look at like evolutionary trends in hominins, humans are getting less sexually dimorphic over time regardless, so.
Yeah.
Like you look at really like our early ancestors, like after we split up from chimps, the males are so much physically larger than the females. Like almost twice the body mass or more. And as time passes, we get closer together in size and skeletal structure.
Do you know this graphic of like how TERFs think skeletal difference are?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because our early ancestors kind of were like that. And we've just become less dimorphic over time. Which is kind of an expected outcome because humans are, our reproductive behavior is socially monogamous, and social monogamy is associated with low degrees of sexual dimorphism.
Yeah. This is the meme. This is how.
Either low degrees or high degrees, specifically in display structures rather than, like, because birds are almost all socially monogamous, and what you'll see is that bird species either have like a really big obvious difference between males and females, but usually only that the males are like brightly colored and have display structures and nothing else.
Yeah.
Like they're the same size as females. Or males and females are so completely indistinguishable that we cannot determine male from female without doing a DNA test on the bird.
That typically kills the
Like,
bird.
for example, when a penguin is... no, it doesn't. We just take someone's blood.
Aren't there some birds where you can actually not test it without killing the bird?
I think there might be. But, like, for example, when a penguin is born in a zoo, we don't actually know whether it's male or female until we do a DNA test.
Yeah, I think there are like some birds
because their anatomy is exactly identical.
Interesting. Sometimes you just gotta wait until like your bird lays eggs.
But yeah, humans have been increasingly evolving to be less dimorphic. Which, I mean, if you really care about, like, say, like, the evolutionary future of humanity or whatever, the obvious conclusion is that the remaining sexually dimorphic characteristics are largely non-adaptive and should be selected against.
What I find interesting is that there's also, like, the gender, like, aspect where... You know, like
the difference is literally skin deep or feather deep. It often is only feather deep, actually. Yeah.
There's like the thing when it comes to, like, you know, fashion and so on, where
oh yeah, I love that. Some birds, there's a I forget what exactly causes it, but there is an intersex condition that is common in birds where they are literally split down the middle, male female.
That's also for butterflies. Have you seen like a male female butterfly?
Which can also result in them being fertile as both male and female, because they end up with one gonad as a testy and the other as an ovary. Whereas most intersex humans with a high degree of intersexuality aren't fertile because they have these like messy undifferentiated gonads instead of having one testy and one ovary.
Yeah.
There's also other examples of sexual monogamy leading to decreased sexual dimorphism. Like, for example, most mammals are not monogamous and have a high degree of male-female sexual differentiation. Like, you can, like, for example, if we go and look at carnivorans, which is like dogs and cats and bears and stuff, most of them are not monogamous and they have very obvious sex differences. Like lions, for example, very obvious, very extreme sexual dimorphism. However, wolves and dogs, as well as foxes, all those canines, those canids, are socially monogamous. They have very little sexual dimorphism, to the point where you often can't tell them apart without looking at their genitals.
Is that why they call me a femboy so many times? I have so many people transvestigating my VTuber model.
In some other, like, much more distant, you have socially monogamous creatures that have, like, extreme differences in sexual dimorphism. Like, Hymenoptera and insects that aren't eusocial are usually socially monogamous, are usually socially and sexually monogamous, and they have, like, pretty extreme differences between male and female. But that's because they have, like, some really weird stuff going on with their reproduction. But, like, generally speaking, social monogamy and sexual monogamy mean reduced sexual differentiation because male and female have similar investments in raising offspring. And so it's more useful for the parents to be redundant than have specialized roles so that the children can still survive to adulthood if they lose one of their parents.
But yeah, what I find interesting is, like, in society is how often what is like considered masculine or male is seen as like neutrality, where like fashion and so on
Mm-hmm.
often
Patriarchy.
it often perceives like androgyny as like, you know, a woman with little makeup wearing men's clothing, because like femininity and like what is considered for women is often seen as like loud
Mm-hmm.
and colorful and so on.
Also, this is a reason why incels are stupid with their hypergamy shit. No, the evidence is humans are socially monogamous with cheating, like many animal species. Um, we mate with one partner. If we lose that partner for some reason, we will find another, unlike some that are very strictly socially monogamous and won't find a new partner if they lose one. And we are willing to cheat on our partners occasionally, which is pretty common in the animal world. Although there are some species that will mate for life with only one individual and then never mate, and then like will never cheat on them and will not find a new partner if their partner dies or something.
Yeah.
But humans are like, we're biologically monogamous. That is the biological tendency for our reproduction. And many of the like differences we have from other apes are mediated by the fact that apes are largely polygynous and haremic in their reproduction, where you have like a group that consists of one adult male and many adult females. And the male mates with all of them. Most primates are like that, but humans are socially monogamous, and many of the differences we have from other primates are mediated by the fact that we are monogamous.
Yeah. Like in elementary school, people do claim that I sit like a girl just because my legs are closed or something. I feel like
Anyways,
society.
real quick, I gotta go take a bio break real quick. I'll be right back.
Alrighty. I feel like society often genders things that shouldn't be gendered, and it's just like trying to like control people and telling you that like what you are doing is wrong because of it not aligning with your sex or something. And it kind of creates like this weird world where people are just restricting themselves to things that not like to doing things that they not well, how do I say this? People are often restricting themselves to doing things not because they like doing these things, but because society dictates that is what they have to do because of their sex. What aligns with their sex. It's not about like, oh, I like this shampoo because that is, you know, a smell that I like. But it's just, oh, it says for women, for men, and that's why I take it. The same when it comes to like feelings as well, when it comes to emotions, when it comes to being vulnerable and so on. It's just, you know, the patriarchal society dictating.
Probably explained a little bit better why socially monogamous animals tend to like evolve away from sexual dimorphism. And the answer is like the reason why sexual dimorphism often exists in animals in the first place is because male and female individuals have different amounts of resource investment in making offspring. Typically, this is that the male has less investment than the female, but this isn't universal. It's just typical. In this results in some incentives being different for males and females. However, when you're socially monogamous, you pick one partner, you have children with them, and you stay with them. Both partners actually have the same investment in raising children, in producing and raising children, which means the incentives to do things differently for each sex largely disappear outside of specific scenarios. which means that the pressure for socially monogamous species is usually to lose sexual dimorphism over time. And it's why male and female birds are largely identical. A TikTok titled with none ovary with left male.
I'm 30. I had some guy tell me to sit like a man,
hold
like
on, my body
consistently. People are so bothered by you doing things that they have been taught they shouldn't do. Right? Like if you're a man and you paint your nails, you will have other guys be like, but I was taught that that is for girls. Why are you doing this? And then they're going to like start being like really upset.
Also, Virgil, their claimed echo, does that mean, does that fact that we're able to control our environment change the way we act in regards to our biological tendencies? Yes, it does. Obviously, there are societies that are not monogamous, so this means it isn't like an imperative you can't deny, but it is the like innate tendency of our species. Dopamine deficit, does that extend to humans though? Yes, the fossil evidence strongly suggests it is. Like I mentioned, early human ancestors have a lot more sexual dimorphism than modern humans. We can tell this because like their bones are different sizes and shapes, and they had like different size footprints. That being transgender and transsexual are two different yet hopefully overlapping transitions. You could say that. I would say I have been swayed towards differentiating transsexual from transgender just because I think there's some necessity in emphasizing that, you know, trans people who experience gender dysphoria do need HRT. It is not something cosmetic or optional, you know. It is life-saving care. And the fact that some trans people don't need HRT doesn't mean trans people don't need HRT.
I think when it comes to like transgender and transsexual, the problem is that
it's
there's
like
a
saying
lot of
not all people with diabetes technically need insulin. Yeah, but the vast majority do.
It's kind of problematic that like some people who do identify with the label transsexual are using that as like a tool in order to invalidate other trans people. And there's like a lot of like gatekeeping happening of like, oh no, you are making the community look bad or something.
On the other hand, I think when our enemies as a community are specifically focusing on attacking access to HRT and not on attacking whether people who don't take HRT are valid, that's far less problematic than people seeking to de-emphasize the importance of HRT to trans people.
Yeah, obviously, it's just like, it kind of creates like a... It creates a lot of like punching down and bullying, and it's not useful in order to like actually attack the real issues in the world going on. It is more about like...
Yeah, well, I do think the term transsexual is because it emphasizes as part of the phrasing itself that trans people do change biological sex.
Yeah.
Which is why people started using it again, is emphasizing trans people's sex change. It's not gender and sex are different. I am also changing my sex.
I always felt like...
I mean, I agree with Julia, although on the other hand, I do agree with Judith Butler that, like, sex is also just socially constructed. Sex is the gendering of the body.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
because
that,
like I said, your actual body is a messy, complicated spectrum.
I think that, like, people will always, like, invalidate trans people because we do not start producing the other gamete and so on. So people are like, no trans person has ever successfully changed sex or something.
that the core motivator for discrimination against trans people is simply the fact that we cannot reproduce as our gender. Because obviously gender roles, sex roles are based around reproductive capabilities and what, patriarchy says is the role you should play in regards with that.
Exactly. It's kind of like you don't meet the you can't fulfill the reproductive role, so you need to like stay in your own lane and like.
And also this. Because the idea that men and women are like inherently different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And completely separate and basically different species is like a core myth of patriarchy. Like the whole thing falls apart if you question that.
Exactly. And that's why a lot of things are essentially being invested into making sure that like trans people are not normally included in society, because that would like break the entire reproductive apparatus of the capitalistic society that we're stuck in.
It's like how like the trans sports thing is in large part driven by we can't let people think there are like overlaps in physical capabilities between men and women, right?
Exactly.
We need to make sure they all believe that women are just inherently weaker than men.
Mm-hmm.
No ifs or buts.
Exactly. The
I wonder if it would be possible to just clone the entire reproductive system for either organ and just stick it in there. Possibly within the next couple of decades, yes. That is very plausible. It would be a natural development of certain technologies that are being actively developed today and will likely be possible within our lifetime.
I find it interesting when it comes to like sports and so on, that like the argument is also being made when it comes to like chess or something. Like trans women are just like inherently superior.
Well,
when it comes to thinking.
Yeah, those make it like absolutely transparent.
Yeah,
that it's sexism.
Or like
that you're saying
as well.
Yeah, you're saying people who are assigned female at birth obviously can't biologically compete at chess with people who are assigned male at birth. That's just sexism. That's just sexism.
Also, you kind of like people also have to understand when it comes to like bathrooms and like sex separated or gendered like spaces. A lot of it comes down to essentially misogyny, right? It was like when it comes to women's bathrooms, or like there even like bars where it's just like, okay, well, you're now allowed to go outside of the house and you're no longer like stuck in here. But when you go into like a restaurant or like a bar or something, you have like your own little space with like all the women, because like you need to be like separated from the men. And that's also when it comes to like bathrooms, it's just like women's spaces being like women's bathrooms being like, oh, it's just like a safe space. You are like separated from.
That's not, which by the way is not true at all. The reason we have sex segregated public bathrooms was originally because you could just not put a woman's bathroom in a building and effectively ban women from being in that building.
So
and women had to fight to have access to bathrooms in places where women were quote unquote not supposed to be.
Like universities and so on.
You can look this up. It's called the urinary leash. That's what feminists describe it as, the way women are denied access to toilets to prevent them from going places that are supposed to be for men only. That's why we have sex segregated bathrooms. It is not to protect women.
Yeah. There's just like the like, wasn't there like the first case where there was a woman studying to become like a lawyer and having to fight to have like women's restrooms or something? Like they didn't
exactly.
They didn't have like the space.
And it's like what I've said with like I keep pointing this out whenever there's something about trans bathroom bans, of like, you realize the next step after saying you're not allowed to enter a bathroom that doesn't correspond with your assigned gender at birth will be to stop putting women's bathrooms in certain buildings, right?
I mean, that's why like gender neutral bathrooms would be like best, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You just like have no they're also like safer.
Because, like, the same people are already openly arguing that it's just not sex discrimination if it's based off natural sex-based roles.
Yeah, it's so
And so, of course,
fascinating.
they're gonna move from banning trans people from toilets to saying, you don't need to have female toilets in places where women aren't naturally supposed to be.
Yeah. It's just like we're kind of regressing as a society, and transphobia is like a tool in order to make this misogyny more palatable.
Serena, there's one quibble I'd have with that, which is that I think the term TERF is actually misapplied, and that the majority of people who describe themselves as feminists today and are anti-trans are not actually radical feminists. They don't even describe themselves as radical feminists.
And now, like, gender
the
critical.
original crop of TERFs, like Janice Raymond and so on, were radical feminists also. And radical feminism has a lot of problems, but they were actual, genuine radical feminists. These people are just conservative, quote-unquote, feminists. Their ideology stems from the idea that there's just this inherent hierarchy between men and women, and the only escape women can possibly have from that is to carve out spaces separate. And protect, and, like, have men protect them from the world.
A lot of things is just like...
They had to study most radfems support trans people. Yeah, that's why the TERF term exists, because radfems who are anti-trans are the exception to the norm.
Yeah. The thing when it comes to, like, TERFs and so on, they're essentially just like foot soldiers of the patriarchy. They are reinforcing patriarchal beliefs. And you can clearly tell this when they also talk about, like, trans girls as, like, the predatory male going into the female spaces in order to, you know, be, like, predatory, right? And they talk about
And if you look at the original crop of TERFs, they're less focused on, like, that, like, trans women are predatory narrative and more on this idea that trans women don't suffer from misogyny and therefore have no place in the feminism.
A lot of it is just like female suffering. Like, obviously we have to endure, like, misogyny and so on, but there's a lot of invalidation happening of, like, oh, males don't experience misogyny.
And that's what real TERFs are like.
Yeah.
And not the gender reactionaries who call themselves feminists despite being just misogynistic in general.
Yeah. Also, when you look at, like, the women,
like, these are people
UK,
Andrea Dworkin would hate.
if you look at, like, if you look at, like, the gender critical cult and so on, if you look at these women, a lot of them are white, misogynistic, middle-aged women who,
yes,
you know, just believe
they're just conservative. They're just conservatives.
They don't like being women because everything, like, they don't have joy in their womanhood. They don't experience this. They are jealous of trans women that we actually want to be women, and it doesn't connect with them that, like, actually womanhood can be nice. Because all of that association that they have is like, oh, you are lesser in society, you're a victim of, like, you know, a biological victim of the biological natural patriarchy and so on. And that creates, like, a lot of, like, disconnect within them.
That's the thing, as you can read in it, is like the core thesis of radical feminism is that sex differences are socially constructed and there is no biological element to patriarchy.
Yeah.
Which is the opposite of what these people are saying. They're saying that patriarchy is biologically natural.
Yeah.
And is, like, and inevitable and can never be escaped.
The thing is, like, they feel like...
Which is not what Radfem said.
You know how a lot of, like, men will find validity in the fact that they are men in them being, like, masculine and fulfilling all of these things. And for these women, it's just like they think that, like, a womanhood or, like, the label woman is being earned by suffering under like the patriarchy or being born female. That's also
Rather
why
than doing that hierarchy, free fall toaster, because I disagree with that actually, that specific hierarchy, I would just say they're all rooted in patriarchy. They all stem from patriarchy and the things patriarchy does to maintain itself.
I mean, misogyny is also just like how the patriarchy views femininity and, you know, being female, not necessarily just like the bigotry that like women
Well, no,
experience.
Serena, the thing about real TERFs is that like when their anti-transness is rooted is specifically in this idea that like trans women don't experience misogyny.
Because we're
Rather
not
than the
being
idea
born
that
female.
they're predatory males invading male spaces, yeah.
I mean, it's also like trans misogyny that we experience and so on. And it's just like the invalidation is just like another step because like we are being criticized for being, you know, male brained and so on. And it's just like a repackaging of like being unladylike. Oh, you shouldn't act this way. Women shouldn't act this way. And now it's like, oh, what you just said, the joke that you
like,
just made is
real
male-coded.
rad femmes who aren't TERFs recognize trans women face misogyny.
The thing is, like, the term "rat femme" has been kind of ruined, I think, by these people.
I hate how people use it as a synonym for TERF, as if the problem with TERFs is the last two letters of the acronym.
Yeah. It's also
radical feminism has a ton of problems, and it's why I don't describe myself as a rad femme. I'm a Marxist feminist. But equating it with transphobia is not it, guys.
Yeah, the thing is, like, a lot of times it's also being equated with, like, racism.
Like, I mean, the rad femmes were really, like the original most famous crop of rad femmes were very racist.
Yeah, that's why, like, people still, you know.
Most of radical feminism's problems stem from the fact that the big radical feminists were upper class white women.
Yeah.
And like dismissing the struggles of other groups.
Do we know when the patriarchy was first formed in human agriculture? Once we like it
third
kinda...
wave feminists like Butler. I think Butler self-describes as a rad femme.
The thing is, like, with, like, agriculture, when it made it so that, essentially women can't leave once we're no longer, like, nomads and we're, like, kind of stuck in a certain place, it kind of created, like, the hierarchy. That's essentially, like, what I know of it. You can, like, look into that. Was it after? No, like, during the time.
Oh, okay, so Judith Butler used to self-describe as a radical feminist, and nowadays she doesn't describe, they actually, wait, she goes by they, them pronouns now. I just said she goes by they, them pronouns now. Fuck me. They go by they, them pronouns now.
They, them.
Fuck. Doesn't describe as a feminist anymore because she thinks the term feminist is outdated. When really we should be putting the emphasis more on the struggle against patriarchy than specifically the struggle for women.
She goes by they, them. Never had someone unironically use this, but, you know, accidents can happen.
I did say it again, yeah.
Damn.
Oh yeah, Enemy Feminisms is a good book.
You recommended a book for me, and it's too difficult. It's too complicated to read. What was it? Was it like trans rad femme? Like trans radical
yeah,
feminism?
it was trans rad femme.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very loaded, I'd say.
Wasn't there even also you say like a eugenicist feminist movement by the turn of the 20th century? There were first wave feminists who said we should bring back slavery so that white women don't have to do housework anymore.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
There is a long history of individuals in the feminist movement being racist and other kinds of bigoted. Which I think is the core failing of feminism throughout its history, is its tolerance for people like that. Which I think modern day feminism has gotten a lot better about not tolerating.
Yeah. Although a lot of people have been like hijacking what it means. And with like trans people, it's just like, if you are an actual feminist and you want to have like an abolishment of like these gender roles that are being reinforced by the patriarchy and reproductive roles and so on, you understand that like including trans women as women is necessary for that.
Mm-hmm.
But people are going to like be like, oh, you just want to have like men in the little girls' room, and it's just like a lot of these things, a lot of leftist things are just being, I guess, made worse by people just hijacking conversations and making it out to be like something ridiculous, because it just like, it requires you to actually think and educate yourself on certain things, and people are just going to like stay ignorant, and then they're going to like dismiss what you're actually advocating for. They're making up like whole scenarios and stories and so on.
But yeah, there is a history of feminists who are like actual genuine feminists, but are also bigoted in other ways that really undermines their ability to actually fight for women and women's rights.
Because if you don't view certain...
Of which the original crop of TERFs were, but the modern day people we call TERFs, the gender criticals, are in fact just anti-feminist.
Yeah. Conservative, misogynistic women. That's essentially just what they are.
Who like to claim the label of feminist because it deprives it, because it like, specifically because it deprives actual feminists of that label.
Yeah, it's like it's just hijacking the label.
It's like a brilliant gambit the British press have done, where nowadays, anytime you see a quote-unquote feminist on British TV or in the British newspapers, they're just a conservative misogynist.
Yeah.
Saying we need to ban abortion or whatever. And you don't see any actual feminists anymore. It let them both push against trans people's rights and push against women's rights by just depriving feminists of the label to describe ourselves. And replacing all actual feminists who would get interviews with just right-wing reactionaries.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with like British TV is also that like a trans person can only be shown if they're being challenged by someone who is gender critical.
Yeah.
Which is just like...
I would say in the UK and in the UK press scenes, I would say obviously actual feminists are nothing like this and have like basically no overlap with gender criticals today. But they have pulled this like rhetorical game of calling themselves feminists specifically to deprive actual feminists of a label with which to describe themselves. Telly saying feminist, but it's just a Christian Nazi woman? Exactly.
I think that like it's the same when it comes to like the right or like
It's the
fascists and
same
so on
way as when like right
hijacking free
wingers
speech.
talk about like racism against white people or whatever.
Oh
They're
yeah,
specifically muddying. They're like intentionally muddying the waters.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
When it comes to like free speech, it's also being hijacked. When it, if you look at like fascist regimes, if you look at like what Trump is doing, like obviously he doesn't really want to have like free speech, but because you can punch down and so on, it's being labeled as like, oh, you can now say whatever you want. Just because, you can say slurs on social media again, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just hijacking what certain things actually mean. Also when you have like bigots and so on, just like being rude, being horrible people, being transphobic and so on, and it's like, oh yeah, but it's just my opinion, it's just free speech, it's my right to say that. I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, your right shouldn't be to just like
And that also
insult
makes it
me.
harder to talk about free speech when they themselves censor actual free speech, like pro-Palestinian speech.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they've muddied the water so much.
Yeah.
It's the same way free speech advocate just
the same when it
like
comes
when
to
they say
like
free speech advocate, they mean a right winger who thinks it should be illegal to criticize racists. It's the same like total inversion of the definition.
Yeah.
It's like actual 1984 doublespeak. Freedom is slavery.
It's the same when people call themselves like anti-censorship, and what they mean is that like, oh, if you're like a fascist, you shouldn't get
They
censored,
say they're anti-censorship and they mean it should be illegal to criticize me.
Yeah, exactly. And then you call it out, and then they're like, oh yeah, but like you're doing the same thing. If you were in power, you would do the same thing. And I was like, that's not necessarily how it works, right? It's just like people want to censor me for saying that like trans kids exist.
Yeah, and the point there is that the way GCs use the word feminism is the same kind of inversion of language. They aren't really stemming from the feminist movement at all, in the way the original crop of TERFs were like actually born of the second wave feminist movement. Gender criticals are just conservative misogynists who are inverting the meaning of feminism to muddy the waters.
Yeah. But it's just like, if you don't question these things, people are going to, people are just, like, how do I say this?
Which, once again, I have to say, is literally what was described in 1984. The way here of like right-wing authoritarians inverting the meaning of words.
Yeah.
To make it difficult to describe what they're doing as bad.
Yeah, the thing is like, if you use these terms that have been like muddied and so on, you will.
Which is ironic because Orwell was himself like extremely misogynistic and racist. So.
Oh yeah, didn't he say that like women are the tool of like, they are like the ones that make the patriarchy or like some shit? Wasn't there like something?
Orwell sucked.
They are the first. They are the first to fall for the lies or some shit. I think there's like some quote where he said that. But yeah, the problem when it comes to like terms is like, if you don't know what you're talking about when you use certain lingo, it makes it really difficult to communicate certain things and to push back against, the right wing.
And who still gets at it, where the important part of right-wing worldviews is hierarchy and the maintenance of it, such that they can just mess around with terms and not actually meaning anything they say, because ultimately the only thing they're saying is people who are higher on the social totem pole should be allowed to do whatever they want to people lower on it.
Yeah.
And they don't need complex terminology to articulate that. They can disguise it all they want in whatever complex terminology they want to appropriate and muddy the waters with. But really all they believe in is hierarchy.
The problem that I find with like, you know, leftist talking points and so on is that a lot of it requires so much unbrainwashing and unconditioning. And when it comes to like right-wing talking points, they just need to do more of the things that society is already doing.
Exactly.
That's also why they get away with the agree to disagree so
it's
much.
It's also why I look down on leftists who are like, oh, we need to adopt some of these rhetorical strategies. And it's no, they work for right-wingers because right-wingers aren't saying anything other than the people who are in power should be allowed to do whatever they want.
Yeah. It's just, it's kind of the thing when it comes to like the Black Lives Matter. It's like you have a slogan and then you have like all of these right-wingers be like, but white lives matter too. All lives matter, actually. And it just like destroys what the movement is actually about.
Yes, they do this rhetorical like play.
Yeah.
Who's the quote from? Like, never be fooled that like the fascist believes in his words or whatever. Let me see the quote.
I have to rush to the bathroom real quick. Right back.
Yeah, never. It's from Sartre, and it says, "Never believe that anti-Semites are unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words." And it's that core lack of belief in anything that lets them do this rhetorical play. Anyways, well, now Nara gone, you should probably follow me. You can see my name in like the title of the stream. If you like my voice and the way I talk and the things I talk about and think I'm cool and smart and cute. It's just a fuck crush their balls. Yeah, it is ultimately a contest of power, Phoenix. Ultimately.
Okay, I've returned.
Hi.
Hello. How do you keep yourself sane in this world?
The number of psychiatric medications I'm on.
Ballad. Do you go
I don't
to,
know, you're asking the
therapy?
wrong person.
Did Are you in therapy?
I haven't gone to therapy in a while. I used to go to therapy. But I've been feeling mostly fine. But like the drugs help.
Valid. No, I'm kinda I've been it's been a little bit rough for me lately, so I'm kinda I think I should go to therapy again. Just like, you know, have like a place other than just stream for me to like break down on and cry.
I don't know how I could go further. Just restating what I said is that, like, reactionaries don't actually at their core believe in anything, and that's why they can just say whatever.
Yeah. Like, the thing is, like, if you call out their hypocrisy, they don't care. Like,
They don't care. They know. They know.
yeah.
They're lying through their teeth.
It's the same with, like, the pearl clutching that, like, bothers me. Like, the constant abuser tactics that they have. Of, like, oh, I'm being transphobic, and, oh, no. You're now attacking me. No. Oh.
And it's like the never Trump conservatives who are, like, surprised to realize their fellows never actually believed any of the things they're saying.
Yeah.
And are left out, and they keep, like, saying, no, there's got to be people like me who sincerely believed it. And it's like, no, you're the exception.
Yeah.
They don't believe in anything but power.
It's also like they keep crossing the line and nobody's holding them accountable because they know that it's just about like normalizing and pushing certain things. And like
they don't believe in anything.
Yeah, when it comes to like
they believe in power.
When it comes to the US, people are constantly like, oh, imagine if like Biden did this. And it's like, people know that Trump is fucking ridiculous and says unhinged shit all the time. He still gets elected because people just want to have a fascist dictator.
And this is why you never debate with reactionaries, because they have a inherent advantage in not believing anything, and being able to say whatever will make them win the argument.
Yeah. I learned my lesson.
It is very hard to win a debate when your opponent can just say whatever.
Exactly. It's also, the thing is, like, if you say something, you will not change anyone's mind. Like, you're not going to change this person's mind. The majority of their audience is not going to change their mind. And it's just going to... You are in a position where you kind of have to justify your existence.
The way you fight reactionaries is you wield whatever power you can to marginalize and crush their influence.
The thing when it comes to, like, you being trans, you having to be in the position of like, oh, why do, you know, like if a right-winger says like, oh, why do I need to respect your pronouns? Why do I need to like do all of these things? Why do you expect, like, you can have like all of these arguments.
It's also why I've gone on to, like, whenever people debate about the Bible, I just say, God's not real, dumbass. And move on.
The thing is just like, people are like, you know,
and
you're
like
in the
mock
position...
them in terms like, you're saying it because your magic sky daddy you think is up there looking out for you says to do this. Do you also believe in Santa?
The thing is just like, you're in the position where you have to just like justify why they shouldn't like lock you up in a camp.
It does help to realize that the things these people are saying don't mean anything, and they're just saying whatever gives them an advantage.
Yeah.
It's freeing to realize that you are right and they are wrong. And it is a waste of time to consider the merits of their replies.
Yeah, that's why like people are constantly hitting me with like unreasonable shit, and I'm calling that out. And people are like, oh, why don't you debate? Why don't you like debate this person? Go debate this person. And it's like, what do I gain from this? Now I'm just like in a different setting. Like instead of reading a comment and like giving a take and saying, like, explaining why what they're saying is just fucking wrong and stupid and so on, like now you just want me to like sit in a call with them. Like, it's just,
you shouldn't address reactionaries by actually addressing their actual arguments. You need to address the structural factors of why they're saying the things they are saying, because they don't mean the things they're saying.
yeah,
They're just a rhetorical strategy.
a lot of these people...
It's far more useful to talk about how they ultimately just want powerful people to do whatever they want than to like actually address any of their arguments.
Yeah, a lot of these people also don't
as if they
know
are
what their words
sincerely
mean.
debating.
Yeah. That's why I don't like this debate culture. I think it ruined the internet.
Mustard, yeah.
I think debate culture literally fried everyone's brain and made it so that everything needs to be like a spectacle.
I mean, if I said what I actually think we should do about these people, then I'm not sure that would be allowed on Twitch.
No. No. No, they should be they should be patted on the head, and yeah, you can have like your little
Right
microphone
before we
and
make them face the wall.
no, stop, don't,
Yeah, stop.
don't, no, shh, no, no, stop, don't say that.
Yeah, I can't say that on Twitch.
Wow, I can't believe. So much for the tolerant left. So much for the tolerant left. How dare you? Oh my god. Yeah. Deleting
On
the
mustard.
past
Oh, it was
5
me
minutes.
rambling about how like every vegetable, about how like half the vegetables in the produce aisle are just a mustard.
Rage Against the Machine starts playing.
Yeah, that's why we're making them face the wall. We're just making them like face the wall and write an essay, like in detention in school. That's totally what I meant.
You mean like make them face the wall and then kiss the wall because it was promised to them 3,000 years ago? That's what
Did
we're
I just
talking
say
about.
mustard? Yeah, like half of all vegetables are mustard. Completely unrelated to anything we've discussed. Cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, gailon, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, collard greens, turnips, rutabagas, canola oil, trying to think of others. There's a bunch of others.
How about we ignore them instead?
Well, a lot of others
The
are
thing is,
all
like,
just cultivars of mustard.
The thing about fascism and like radicalization is that it is a cancer that you can't necessarily ignore because it's just like sowing the seeds of like constant discourse with like conspiracy theories and so on, and it radicalizes people and it just spreads from there. And at some point we are in the situation right now where it's really difficult to just exist as a normal human being that is especially part of like a marginalized group, because they have like the biggest platforms, they have the political power, they have the wealth and backing and so on, and it's like really difficult to just like ignore that. Doesn't mean you shouldn't like debate them and give them like a platform validity to like their claims and so on, because like if they have like their unreasonable takes in a setting, like something that is like considered official, like
and
a
that's
debate.
why it's important not to engage with them on their own terms.
Yeah. I learned my lesson after like debating twice with conservatives. I'm not going to do that. I think it's fascinating.
They don't believe the things they say. It's so obvious.
The thing is, like, even like a lot of liberals want to like
you'll give them a ton of evidence why something they say is wrong, and they'll just pivot to saying some other argument.
Yeah.
And later they'll use the same fucking argument you debunked.
A lot of
times, they never believed it in the first place. They just thought it was rhetorically useful to say.
A lot of times they are also like dismissing what you're saying because they're like, well, you're just saying that it's feeling space or something, so I don't need to listen to it. A lot of it is also like very like pseudo-intellectual, using like, oh, you're using this fallacy and I don't have to engage with what you're saying because there's this fallacy. I also don't understand. They don't listen. They don't listen, and they
found that what really catches them off guard is when you start questioning why they're saying the things that they obviously know to be false.
Yeah.
When you don't engage with them on their own terms, and you do just say, why are you lying? Why are you lying to these people? Why do you say things you know aren't true? And I'm not going to let you answer that, because I know the answer and I'm going to say the answer.
Are you going to say the answer?
Well, I mean, in a general sense, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, the answer is because they're allegiances to power and they think powerful people should do whatever they want to people with less power than them.
Twice? Yeah, I have talked with Mama
And because they think it
Okro and
personally
with
benefits
Leaflet.
them.
The thing is, like, there are also liberals out there who really want to, like, desperately debate me. We debating politics?
I think you can debate liberals, and I think that can be productive because liberals believe the things they say.
The thing is, like, they're also... It's just, like, sometimes they're, like, unreasonable positions that they...
Yeah.
Unreasonably
I think to a certain extent,
into.
all people don't necessarily have coherent beliefs that they believe sincerely. But liberals generally do believe things, and there is stuff to be gained by debating them and engaging with them, like, sincerely.
Yeah, it's just like sometimes the line
I don't like
between...
the format of like a televised debate because
Yeah.
then it's just a competition, but like actually having conversations with liberals,
A conversation
I have
is
gained
different.
a lot from it.
I think a conversation is different than a debate because a debate is always like a spectacle. And it's about
You've debated liberals and we left the conversation both knowing more. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying is that like there is use to be found in debating people who at least believe what they say. And the same goes for the few conservatives who actually do believe what they say.
The thing is, like, there are just like so many...
Who aren't many.
There's so many who call themselves liberals and they're just like liars and manipulative and so on. And it's more about
yes, exactly.
Just...
I mean, actual liberals.
Yeah. It's just like it's a line. A lot of like US liberals are also like more right-leaning than they'd like to admit. So it's difficult. It's more about like a lot of nuance, and you kind of have to like pick who is worth investing. You know, who is worth like engaging with, because a lot of them are like bad faith. People win debates, no one win arguments. The thing is, like, when it comes to winning a debate, it kind of depends on like who has the bigger platform and who do you align with, right? Because I participated in 2 debates. I don't think anybody won. Because I'm not entirely sure what was gained from it. And I just hope that like people who watched it maybe learned more, and maybe some people in that conservative audience are going to like question some things about themselves.
Yeah, and I found the most effective way to do that is to just very directly attack them, rather than sincerely engage with their arguments, because you have to go into it knowing they're just lying.
Views. That's true.
They just lie through their teeth. They say what's ever useful in the moment, and they don't care whether it means anything or not.
Yeah. That's why the thing is like that's why I rather have like their takes as like a written form or as like a YouTube video, and then I can like talk about this and I can react to it and dismantle it like that, instead of like actually engaging in like a debate setting. Yeah, I'm super into hentai. Let's just say I just love hentai. Let's just say I'm a gooner. Yeah.
Oh god, same here. something I posted in my tits on Blue Sky once.
Only once?
Actually, I think it was twice, but yeah.
People have been asking me to post ass pics. Quick chat, we must find it. No, I don't.
I mean, it's pretty easy to find if you join my Discord. This is also a thing, and when people stress the importance of debate, they often appeal to the importance of debate in science.
Yeah.
But when scientists debate, it is not two people standing on podiums debating each other live. It is messages and letters exchanged over months or years with ample time to prepare a reply.
The thing is, like, also I find a lot of political debates are just like a spectacle, and you know, you're not necessarily learning a lot through it. Like it's been, especially
and
if
scientific
like,
debate isn't like a spectacle at all.
Yeah. Especially if it's just like, you know, talking to like someone like Trump, who's just not actually listening and comprehending anything that the other person is saying. A lot of it is also like clip farming, right? That's why so many like right wingers and so on, they go to like college campuses. Why do they always debate kids? Can somebody, you know, explain that to me?
I mean, because they know that kids on college campuses don't have good arguments and aren't good at debate.
It's also because of like them not understanding the logical fallacies that they're using, the bad faith arguments.
And that's also the thing, is that format of debating random people over the course of a day makes it less suspicious that they edit out parts.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if they run into someone who like knows what they're talking about and is good at debating them, they just won't put that in the video.
It's clip farming. Yeah. It's how like these street interviews are like happening, right? Where it's like, oh, I want to portray Americans as like, you know, stupid and you don't know geography, so I'm just going to like pick a bunch of people, ask them, you know, question. Maybe like the world map is actually not a world map. Maybe it's just a map of, I don't know, Europe. And then I'm asking them where, you know, different places are. And then you have like a bunch of clips where people are just like very caught off guard and they don't know anything, and boom, content. Amazing. Like here in Germany, there was a show that also they always used to do stuff like that as well. It's just like, you know, just messing with people to portray them as like stupid or something. Trump kickstarted the American century of humiliation. I feel like Trump kind of started the end of like a US centric
Exactly,
world.
Trigger. That like format of like doing interviews with random people, and like debating random people, that is specifically designed to allow you to only choose the interactions that portray the way you want it to portray, whereas you can't do with like a full-length debate with one specific person.
Yeah.
And even then, that kind of debate format,
something like Jubilee,
is kind of just like rewards like rhetorical play over actual facts.
Something like Jubilee is actually incredibly dishonest, because a lot of like these people don't know the questions and they don't know who they are debating.
Exactly.
It's just content, and it's portraying a lot of unreasonable things as something that, you know, just like deserves to be platformed. And a lot of it is just like normalizing right-wing talking points. And it's fascinating how like all of these people, the thing is like a lot of it on the right is controlled through optics. So they have like their screeching SJW and so on, and then that is like their meme that they're going to be using like the entire time. It's just optics. But yeah. Was there something else that you wanted to talk about?
Not that I can think of in specific. That's what I've been trying to think about and why I've been quiet. Is like,
What do we go from here, right? I mean, we can always have like another collab. I do appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
and,
we could like play games or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I could go. I probably need to go get food because I haven't had lunch yet.
Are you going to be streaming later?
No, I don't have plans to stream later.
Okay. Yeah, I've been feeling a little bit, I've been struggling a little bit with my mental health.
Thank you,
so I don't wanna stream like that long today as well. So you know how it is. Sometimes the lows feel lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make out silly style in the void. I'm not sure this is the correct stream site for that.
Yeah, I mean we do have art. We should get like another art.
Yeah, we did. Oh yeah, we did. Oh yeah, you should show that one art we got together.
I need more. The problem with like AI and like right-wingers using AI and so on means that like when I get slop, it is me being shipped with people that I don't like. So I need to commission more in order to like combat the fact that I am just getting like enemies to lovers type of stuff instead of actually getting the Yuri with friends, There you go. Art piece.
Yeah.
We have been going for 4 hours. Short streams.
4 hours, like 4 to 5 hours is usually what I go for, and I've been meaning to go a bit longer.
Yeah, I've been yesterday I had like a really short stream because I started crying.
Oof.
On Monday I had a stream that was like 8 hours long because it was my 4 years HRT anniversary. And I want to get into the grind again of like streaming like 6 hours or something. But like I haven't had like the stamina. Being submissive really suits you. Damn, I should try that out for a change. Maybe,
Yeah, I mean, she's a huge sub. She's a huge sub.
You too, though. You too.
I'm a switch, but I do lean sub, yes.
Yeah. Just because you're, just because your model has like more aura. Your model asserts more dominance. It's just manipulative. It is gaslighting you.
Whenever I'm streaming with someone, they start acting like a dominant way towards me. I usually just like fucking shut down.
Yeah.
I'm so flustered.
Interesting, but I really enjoy listening to your voice.
Thank you.
You have a nice voice.
Yeah, if we keep doing stuff like if you want to play a video game, I need to go get some food real quick.
I'm not entirely sure how long I want to go like today, but maybe we can like set something up because I've been I've been lacking a little bit of the energy. I think it's just I'm like at a point where it's just okay for me to.
You should tell people in chat to follow me.
I think
like my stuff.
I think I'm just going to
like
give
you
a
could give me an
shout out.
actual shout out on Twitch.
Yeah. Go follow Vivi now. Click the button now. Do the thing. Wait, How many followers are you at right now?
4.7K.
Nice.
Getting close to the 5K. You want me to unfollow and refollow? Follow now.
No, like if you're not following me, please follow, and like on socials too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
If you want to drop the link to your Blue Sky.
Oh yeah, let me drop the link to my Blue Sky too.
Yeah, we can set up some gaming you know, in the future. And
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
we haven't been collabing in a while.
Yeah, I've been like super busy with a bunch of stuff recently. Which I'm like still kind of busy, but like enough that I can actually plan collabs. I have like enough free time that I can actually plan collabs.
Okay.
Which I've been meaning to do more.
Yeah, I think that like, I'm not entirely sure what like plans are for my next week. I'll be talking with Vio on the 24th, which should be a Friday actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if you want to like set something up like next week, but we can just we can talk about that. But
Yeah, of course.
I really appreciate you for coming on and sharing your knowledge.
Knowledge.
And also like for podcasts, if you just want to like yap about something as
Yeah,
well,
of
we
course.
can set something up again. But yeah, tell everybody where to find
God, I'm
you.
so hungry. I need to go get lunch.
If you wanna tell people where they can find you, I know just giving the
You
shout
can
out.
find me here on Twitch. I stream usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. No, I don't usually stream Thursday, but I do stream Friday and Saturday. Usually afternoons, like American times in the week, and about 2 p.m. CDT on the weekend.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks
So
for.
I see you're Glorp now.
I'm Glob. Yeah, I have been turned into lesbian ears, and
Also, my throat is getting strained because I have a cold.
yeah, you should eat something, get some rest, and we'll set something up for the future. But thank you so much for hanging out and joining me in this in my little silly little podcast. And I'll try to upload this as soon as possible. I'm probably going to like edit the segment of your presentation and upload that as like a standalone video. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and go get rest.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Okay, we're gonna rest my voice, hopping out of Discord now. Bye, bitch.
Goodbye.